good evening, and welcome. Tonight I'm going to be teaching you the history and geography of Ghana. It's a little country right here on the coastline here of West Africa. After I go over that, I'm going to show you this map, then in my big atlas, and then we're going to flip through this book. I'll show you some pictures. So, Ghana. Let me get my pencil. I forgot to use it in my last video series I did on South Korea. I knew I was forgetting something during that whole video. I couldn't figure out what it was. It was my pencil. How could I forget? So Ghana, you can see here, lies along the Gulf of Guinea. You can see right here. There's its capital city, Accra. And the biggest geographic feature of the country, I want to show you on this map, it's easier to see than the other map, is Lake Volta right here. It looks small because it's a small map, but it's very large. It's actually the world's largest man-made lake. We'll talk about it when we go over the history of Ghana because it's important to its history. But it was created to generate hydroelectric energy for the country. And two rivers combine into one that flow into it. The White Volta, which you can see flowing right here, and the Black Volta, which is a little harder to see because it's right here along the border, and it flows into the White Volta. The borders of Ghana along here are the Ivory Coast, or Côte d'Ivoire, Burkina Faso, and Togo. They're all French-speaking countries, but Ghana is an English-speaking country. And again, we'll talk about that in its history. More along its geography, the southern region down here is a lot more forested, a lot wetter, a lot greener than the northern region of Ghana, which is more drier, a lot more savanna grasslands. And that's due to its position on the African continent, because it's right in between these two different regions of the African continent, where you have the Sahara Desert up here and the jungly kind of African rainforest region down here. So it has those two distinct climates, so to say, in the country. As you can imagine, the coastline is much more populated than up here. It's much more sparsely populated up here. Interestingly enough, one of the biggest crops that's grown in Ghana is cocoa. And if you're like me and like your Cadbury cream eggs, Cadbury gets all of their chocolate from Ghana. So when you eat your Cadbury cream eggs around Easter time, that chocolate comes from Ghana. How cool is that? But what Ghana's most famous for exporting is actually gold. And I think I want to show you the other map, because I've pretty much shown you everything I want to show you on this map. So let me move this, and let me move this book very carefully. To show you Ghana. The sad thing about this map is that the crease of the book goes right through Ghana. But it is a nice map nonetheless. You can also see the prime meridian goes through Ghana right here. 0 degrees latitude. There's not a lot of countries that the prime meridian cuts through. Gold, right? You can even see here where it says the Gold Coast. Ghana for a long time was best known for its gold, and in a sense that's how it kind of gets its name from. So I'll do a video on it in 2 days, I not tomorrow, but the day after, about the Ghana Empire, which wasn't actually located in geographic Ghana. It was more around up here in the north in what is Mali today. It was the first of the three great African, or West African empires, I should say. And it wasn't actually called the Ghana Empire. So they didn't have writing in this ancient empire. But the people they traded with did. The people they traded with were Muslim. So, they had the Qurans. Of course, they had writing. So they wrote about the people they traded with. Didn't speak the same language. So they made their best assumptions, assumed that it was called Ghana. But Ghana was actually the name of their kings. It was the word for warrior king. The name of the actual empire was Wakadu. But what they were trading was gold. The traders in the north, the Muslim traders in what is now like Algeria, Morocco, were trading with the Ghana Empire for gold in exchange for salt, because they were a landlocked empire. They had no access to salt. So, that was very precious to them. And then, of course, the people in the north were very grateful for all the gold they were getting. But the Ghana Empire seemed to have just like an endless supply of gold. They just had gold all over the place. And I'll cover in the video coming up about what happened to the Ghana Empire and how it collapsed. But it is believed that some people from that empire fled south and came to kind of like the northern area of present-day Ghana. It's not 100%, but it is believed to be that way. So, Ghana today also is very rich with gold. There are still gold mines operating there today. Gold was one of its most important exports for a long time. So when they had the opportunity to name themselves, they picked the empire that was also very rich with gold, part of their very ancient heritage, even though, like I said, it wasn't located in this area specifically, but they chose to name themselves after that old empire, who in its time was very powerful, rich, very strong. But in this region, we know for sure that the tribes in this area really started to grow into power around the 5th century CE. And these tribes were the Akan people. And, they slowly but surely grew with power. By the 9th century, by the 11th century, that's when they really started to get a foothold onto like a for reals kingdom, so to say. And by the 13th century, they had split into many different kingdoms all over this area. I could go into detail about all the different ethnic groups and kingdoms about there, but the one you really need to know for this history was the Ashanti Kingdom, which was located kind of in this central region right here. They were the biggest, the baddest, the strongest, the richest, the wealthiest, the most powerful of the kingdoms. There wasn't one that ruled over all the others, but you just didn't mess with the Ashanti. If you poked them, they would poke you back twice as hard. They were that kind of people. They were very warlike, very aggressive. They will definitely fight you back if you provoke them. Skipping ahead a little bit, the Ashanti would eventually establish the city of Kumasi as their capital in the 1600s. Their chief at the time, the Ashanti Osetutu, was the one who established the city, really created, like an empire, so to say, kind of as we think of empires today. comes up later in history, but I'll just go into it now, so I won't go into it later. According to Osetutu, a golden stool descended from the sky, and the stool, which oh, where'd the book go? I'll show you a picture of it in this book. But there we go. The golden stool became a symbol of the power of the Ashanti chief, the Ashanteene. And it was very, very sacred. It hardly ever came outside the palace. It was hardly ever even sat upon by the chief. When a new chief was crowned, you know, they didn't even sit on it during the ceremony. It was incredibly, incredibly sacred to the people. So just remember that. So, going back. In the 15th century, the Portuguese were the first Europeans to arrive along the coast, realized that there was a good thing going on here in terms of gold. So they established the Portuguese Gold Coast and built their first fort. It's now known as Elmina Castle. You can see, where is it? Right here. It says Elmina. And I believe it is definitely one of the, if not the oldest. It's definitely the oldest in West Africa, but probably one of the oldest European buildings still standing. That's, you know, built by a European that's not in Europe. It was commissioned in 1481, finished not long after that, and it became the first of many Portuguese forts along the coast here, used as trading and shipping centers, bringing things, you know, out from Ghana. Mostly, at first was gold, and later became crops, and then, very sadly, slaves. Eventually, other Europeans got wind of how much gold was in this area, so the Dutch Gold Coast was established in 1598, and they started building forts all over the coast. They started conquering Portuguese forts along the coast, fighting little battles with them, you know, taking over, so on and so forth. And then other European nations got involved, started establishing their own Gold Coast colonies, building their own forts, conquering other forts. By the 17th century, we had the Swedes, the Danes, the English, the French, and for a minute the Germans got involved as well, all wanting the gold and the slaves, very, very sadly. But after a lot of power struggles, it was the British that won out in the end. Took over all the forts and the coastline and established a colony, the Gold Coast Colony, in 1874. They managed to take over control of the tribes along the coast. Some of them were peaceful, some went along, some of course were not so much. So they, I'll show you a map in here, but they established a colony along here, and they actually managed to take over a lot of the northern area as well and establish the Northern Territory. But of course the one that gave them the most trouble was the Ashanti, who, you know, was very ready to put up a fight. So the British and the Ashanti fought like 3 wars against each other. And even though the Ashanti were very strong, very noble warriors, the British just had superior fighting technology. And by the early 1900s, they had taken over the Ashanti kingdom in what was known as the War of the Golden Stool, because of course they wanted that golden stool as a way to symbolize a takeover of the power. And very sadly they did, which is not cool, I think, but don't worry, because there is a museum in Kumasi, like a Ashanti museum, and the golden stool is there, so it's home. Don't worry, it's okay now. So this whole region became British colonies that were used for gold at this point. They brought in the trees to grow cocoa and started growing the cocoa pods to create chocolate. And by this time, the slave trade was long gone. The British were actually using the forts to try to stop slave ships from going out from other countries. Not the most successful campaign, but I mentioned that in my Cambia video as well. Yeah, it was, a very horrific practice, the slave trade, especially in Ghana. Many people were trafficked out through these forts here. I can't imagine. I've taken some virtual tours of some of the forts here, and the conditions these people were kept in after they were kidnapped were extremely disturbing, but very sad history. But the British kind of, colonization's never a good thing. Let me say that up front. But they did try to do some good for this colony. For one thing, they kept the tribes intact. They kept the tribal way of life going. They kept the tribal leaders in power and let them continue their way of ruling, of, like holding court, making decisions, letting the tribes live their daily life. So there were governors that were in charge of the Gold Coast, but they let, the tribal leaders do their day-to-day and, continued that way of life. The governors built a lot of schools, a lot of hospitals, built roads, made, lots of access to clean water, really tried to improve the life of the people in this colony. And they actually built universities. Some of I think like the oldest university in West Africa is in Accra, I want to say. Pretty sure. In like the 1900s, I want to say they built the first university in West Africa. So it wasn't long until there was a generation of highly educated West Africans coming out of the Gold Coast, and with their education they had opportunities to study in London and the United States. Keep that in mind. World War II happens, and of course, Britain is one of the major players in that. A lot of men from the Gold Coast colony fought in Burma, particularly, and in North Africa, but mostly in Burma. They sent a lot of soldiers from their African colonies to the front lines in Burma, which was, I've already covered Myanmar in my Countries of the World series. It was a battle that they very sorely lost. So, you have this generation of people who are highly educated, and now we're, pretty bitter toward the British after that war. A movement started in the 1950s for independence for the colony, and it was led by a man named Kwame Nkrumah. And Nkrumah was one of those highly educated men from the Gold Coast. He studied in the United States and in London, and had attended lots of like pro-African American movements in the United States, and had attended like pro-African independent movements in the United Kingdom. So he had grand ideas of African liberation, and he came back to Ghana to spread that message. And he traveled around the town spreading that message and got that momentum going, which the British were not happy about, and were declaring his rallies and meetings illegal. But then that just, sparked more fire, some more anti-British sentiments. In 1947, the elected officials of the Gold Coast colony declared self-governance. They said it was time for, a more independent country. And in 1951, they held elections, and Nkrumah was elected to the parliament. And during that election, he was actually in prison for, his speaking out against the British and for pro-independence. So they had to let him out of prison after that election because now he was an elected official. And by 1952, he was elected the Prime Minister of the Gold Coast. And then on March 6, 1957, the country of Ghana was established, an independent nation under the British Commonwealth, with their leader, Kwame Nkrumah. But it didn't stay part of the Commonwealth for long. It became a republic on July 1st, 1960, and Nkrumah became its first president. And it's very important for the history of Africa, honestly, because it was the first country to successfully declare independence. It started a wave of other countries across Africa, especially West Africa, to declare independence from their European colonizers. Very successful movement, and Nkrumah was riding that wave pretty hard. Once Ghana was created as a country, they had a lot of money stored up from their very profitable gold trade, from the chocolate trade. They just had a very successful economy. And he pretty much blew all that money on vanity projects. He created the Akosombo Dam here on Lake Volta. You can see it right there, Akosombo Dam. Thousands of people were displaced to create Lake Volta. So in the short term, it was a very unpopular movement, especially since the lake turned out to grow to be a lot bigger than it was planned to be. It flooded a lot of land that people had been living on for hundreds of years. But it did generate electricity for many people in Ghana. So, long term it had a positive effect. But yeah, Nkrumah basically blew their entire budget on huge projects that didn't have a short-term payoff. His big goal was to create a sort of the United States of Africa with the surrounding West African nations, which would have taken, many, many, many years to create, considering, what every other country was going through at the time. And his popularity was plummeting in Ghana to the point where when he was out of the country in China, in 1966, there was a coup and his government was overthrown and he was exiled. And he actually never was able to return to Ghana, and he, lived the rest of his life in exile. Now, I should say, a little aside, I had some, crazy technical difficulties that I'm not going to go into in detail. But I had to wait for a new computer to arrive a lot longer than I thought I would need to. So I spent that time deep diving into this period of Ghanaian political history just out of boredom, and I wrote down way too many notes for it. I know this is a relaxing video to put you to sleep, but even just reading through my notes, it's pretty in-depth. It's almost too much, so I don't want this to be a 3-hour video about the political turmoil of Ghana throughout the 20th century. This isn't a university lecture. So I'm just going to summarize the late 1960s to the early 1990s by saying that there were a lot of different governments and a lot of coups that overthrew them. I think there were 4 different governments. I think filed away all my notes. I just copied down the bullet points. But the short-term summary is that mainly during this time, the economy plummeted even worse than it was after Nkrumah was taken out of power, because it was a very unstable government, like a one-party system, military ran. A leader would step up and say that they were going to fix the country. They wouldn't. They would declare themselves president for life, which I should say Nkrumah did that as well. That was, once he started getting really unpopular and he was afraid that he was going to get kicked out, he declared himself president for life, but all of his best friends in positions of power, made him really unpopular. Lots of other politicians were doing the same thing. They would get, thrown out of their positions. It was a lot of turmoil. And one man had enough. He was part of the military. His name was Jerry Rawlins. And he was heavily involved in a coup in 1981. And he actually didn't take control, so to say. He kind of ran like his own, almost like a puppet shadow government, where he wasn't calling the shots, but he was supervising the shots. So he set up a government, he rewrote the Constitution, established a new government, and after, I want to say a year or two, he didn't like it and he overthrew that government and, set up a more democratic government. He was a force to be reckoned with, but he just aggressively put democracy in place in Ghana. In 1992, they held elections and he was elected president. It's a little shady whether or not those elections were fair and square, but he said they were. And in his new constitution, presidents could hold 2 terms, so he was re-elected 4 years later. And then, of course, 4 years down the line, it's the question of, is he going to allow the democratic process to continue, or is he going to, flip the switch and say, forget it, I'm actually a dictator now, I'm president for life. He actually let democracy do its thing. And in 2000, John Kufuor was elected president in the first peaceful, legitimate, democratically chosen transfer of power in Ghana. And ever since then, for the past 20 years, politically, Ghana has been very democratic and peaceful. I mean, nobody's perfect, and it's 2021 now. 2020 just passed. It wasn't a good year for anyone. But on a political scale, it's been a very stable government. Not nearly as corrupt as it had been in the past. They're really, pushing forward toward a better and brighter future. Definitely one of the most stable democracies in the whole of Africa, to be honest. A very, shining example. They actually just had an election at the end of 2020. So, yeah, things are looking good in Ghana. So, I could go into far more detail, but I'm just going to leave it at that. So, let's look at the book, and I'll show you some cool pictures of Ghana. Look how pretty. She's beautiful. Ghana. It looks like a cocoa plantation. Happy. Let's see. So, looks like a neat marketplace here, connecting past and present. This is a celebration of the 50th anniversary of Ghanaian independence. See, this is modern art, phone cards, and a political map of Ghana. on the cell phone. Ghana's also, I mean, this is an older picture, you can tell, but one of the first African countries to become very technologically advanced. Beautiful beaches. And this is Cape Coast, which was established by the Portuguese when they first landed in what is now Ghana. So you can see like the old like walls built here against the new buildings there. Let's see. A physical map of Ghana, which you can really see just how big Lake Volta is. It's huge. Here's Takoradi Port, which is one of two major ports in Ghana. Here in Sekondi Takoradi is actually two cities. They're like twin cities. And then never actually found if it was Tima or Tema. But Ghana actually doesn't have any natural harbors, so they've created harbors in this city. In these cities, I should say. But Takoradi is the largest one. Beautiful forests here, gorgeous, and the grassy savannas. You can really see the difference between southern Ghana, southern Ghana, what's the word I'm looking for? The nature, what's the word I'm looking for? The landscape, the environment, you know what I mean. Southern Ghana versus northern Ghana. The landscape. I still anyway, it's late. This is a marketplace in Kumasi. Another picture of Takoradi, I was right. The Volta River. Let's look at this waterfall. Gorgeous. It says this is the Lee Falls, the highest falls in West Africa. That's gorgeous. And here's a ship on Lake Volta. Here's the Akosombo Dam. And you stay and dry. It gets very rainy in the rainy season. This is a bongo antelope. Very pretty. And some baboons. Oh, I just remembered. First of all, look how cute these baboons are. I just remembered there's a snake on the next page, which, you know, if you have a snake phobia, it's a very scary looking snake. Just a warning. There's also elephants on the next page. My favorite animal. So I'm going to turn the page. Here we go. There is some gorgeous elephants. Aren't they beautiful? Elephants are my favorite. Taking a drink. And then here's the snake. It's a black mamba. One of the most deadliest snakes in the world. My National Geographic video yesterday talked about snakes like these. Okay, snake is gone. A barracuda. There's jumpers. Oh, and this is so interesting. So this is Kakum National Park, where they've built this walkway up in the canopy of the rainforest trees, so you can walk. What is it? It's like 90 feet in the air. Oh, sorry, I was way off. 1,093 feet. Oh no, long. I think it's 88 feet above. I was close. 88 feet above the forest floor, so you can see the canopy of the forest. I couldn't do that. I'm a chicken about those kind of things. Here's a baobab tree, which, if you've read The Little Prince, you know all about the baobab trees, and how dangerous they can be. And a termite mound. So, the timber industry was a huge industry, especially after independence. They relied really heavily on the timber industry and logging, what have you. But of course that wiped out a lot of forests in Ghana, so they've been working hard on scaling that back and replanting, which this next picture here, it's a guy planting a fix the forests that were destroyed. Ghana through time. So, Ashanti sculpture. And here's what an Ashanti home would have looked like back then. Let's see. An Ashanti horseman equipped for war. See, you don't mess with these guys, I'm telling you. They were tough. Gold weights that they used to measure the gold that they sold. And here is the Golden Stool. The Golden Stool that came from the heavens. See, I'm not kidding. It floated down to earth and came to rest on the lap of Osei-Tutu. The priest then declared that the soul of the Ashanti nation lived in that stool. It became the most sacred object in the Ashanti kingdom. I'm telling you, it's important. Here is Elmina Castle, built in 1482. And here's one of the sad aspects of it. This was a slave auction room. Horrible things happened here. It's so sad. And here talks about slavery, the slave industry. That was so sadly prosperous in this region. Now here's Maya Angelou, a very, very famous American poet, novelist, author, who managed to trace her ancestry back to an Ewe tribe in Ghana. Here is Kumasi, what it would have looked like back then. The British actually burnt it to the ground when they took it over. Now here's a map of the Gold Coast colony. So here you can see, let me get pencil. The Gold Coast colony, the British had control over. You can see Elmina there. Accra, which I believe was, I'll talk about it later, but really didn't become anything until the 1600s when it became a major trading center. The Northern Territories up here, which was part of British rule. Neutral territory, which they didn't really care about because it wasn't very populated. It just had little tribes here and there, so the British didn't really care. They just let people live there. And then, of course, the Ashanti people were right here in the middle. And here's the British fighting against the Ashanti. Here's Otto von Bismarck, one of the leaders of Germany in the 1800s, the late 1800s, meeting up with a lot of European white people, deciding what parts of Africa they get to own. And here's what they decided. So here's the map of the European division of Africa as of 1914. You can see Ghana right here, belonging to the British. Really interesting map. You can see, of course, was independent was, of course, Liberia, Ethiopia, and South Africa. Everything else got divided up and owned by European nations, very sadly. This is Prempeh the First. He was the Ashanti when the British took over the Ashanti territory. He wasn't the last Ashanti king, tribal leader, but he was the last to rule like an independent Ashanti kingdom. Here is the day that Ghana became independent. They flew the Ghana flag for the first time. Richard Nixon was there, and Martin Luther King Jr. on this day. Here's Kwame Nkrumah, first president of Ghana. Here's a picture of his statue being toppled after he was forced out of office, and these people look kind of happy about it. This is Kofi Busia, who was president after Nkrumah. I think he was only president for like 11 months before his government was removed from power. It wasn't very long. Remove pencil. Here we go. This is Jerry Rawlings. Very powerful man, very strict man. Here's John Adam Mills, who I guess was president when this book came out. He actually passed away in office, I want to say it was 2012, and his vice president took over. Very sad, but that's what happened. But yeah, it's been a peaceful democratic process ever since 2000. Here you can see someone voting. It's been very peaceful ever since in terms of political transitions. The national flag of Ghana. Let's read about it. Ghana's flag has 3 horizontal stripes of red, gold, and green. In the center of the gold stripe is a black 5-pointed star. The green represents the country's forests, the red stands for the blood of those who died fighting for independence, and the gold represents the country's mineral wealth. These are the traditional colors of liberation in Africa. The star stands for African freedom, and it stands alone because Ghana was the first black African country to become independent. Let's see. Here's a picture of the Ghanaian Parliament. Beautiful colors of Ghana, the star. A picture of a lawyer dressed like they do in Britain, wearing the wigs and everything. Cat just woke up and he's drinking water, if you can hear that. Here is a Fonte chief wearing traditional clothing. Very impressive. You can see all the gold. Accra. So yeah, here it talks about Accra, which name Accra comes from Kran, an Akan word for the black ants that are found in the area. That's why it's pronounced like that, Accra. I always thought it was Accra, but it's Accra. This is the Kwame Nkrumah Mausoleum. Here's some gorgeous masks and a map of Accra. National Museum, National Theatre, Art Center, Kwame Nkrumah Mausoleum, Osu Castle. Lots of castles and forts along the coast of the country. Remnants of colonialism, growing economy, working hard, working on computers. Hello, cat. Cat's looking at me. Hi. Did you want to sit on my lap? Let me turn the page. What's up, buddy? Come here. You can come sit on my lap. Please don't step on the map. Thank you. Come on. Yes, come on. There you go. I know I've got my electric blanket on in my lap. There you are. Do you want to make some purr sounds for the microphone? Yeah. There's my kitty. Thank you, kitty. Alright. You're a good boy. Okay, sit down so we can talk about Ghana some more, okay? Can you sit down, big guy? Please sit down. There you go, buddy. Okay. Lay down. Let me just push your little booty down. There you go. Okay. Now he's down. Alright, I've got my cat. Ooh, okay. Back to Ghana. You can hear him purring. Cocoa beans. Cocoa beans. And a map of the resources of Ghana. Plantation agriculture, which, like I said, the primary one being cocoa. Forests here. This big national park right here. Over here. And then tropical crops like plantains, papaya, things like that. Ooh, look at this. The gold mines. Look at the gold in the rocks. Gold has been mined on this site since the 1600s. Let's see, here's a timber mill, a sawmill, course, fishing is a big industry as well. Pharmaceuticals, because like I said, the healthcare industry became very important. Putting the pencil away. Became important to Ghana in the 1900s. And of course, the shipping industry is very big. Here's the trotros. So trotros are kind of like combination of taxis and buses, where they're like vans that travel on a route, and you hop on whenever, and you just tell the driver when you want to get off, and they just pull over and let you off. There's no like specific stops. Make sure I'm not skipping a page. Okay. Here's the Ghanaian currency. It's called a cedi. And a picture of, it says the University of Ghana campus that uses solar power. The people of Ghana. This beautiful lady. Oh, and there's cute kids. These books always have cute kids. Look at these smiles. I love the cute kids in these books. The suburbs of Accra. Show you the important ones. Look at this house. A house in northern Ghana. Working hard in school. And here's Kofi Annan, former Secretary General of the United Nations. He's from Ghana. Spiritual world. It's a gorgeous mud brick church built in 1906. Worship service. Bible study. Best clothes. That pretty dress. And these mosques they built in ancient West Africa or something else. I know in the Mali Empire, in like Timbuktu, they have some really cool mosques that look like this. It is the most fascinating architecture, I think. It's so unique. It's so beautiful. Here's a guy praying, and here's, it says members of the Ewe ethnic group paint their faces white during a ritual honoring the bush spirit. Cute baby. And a traditional priest performing a ritual. It says this is a dance prior to a soccer tournament. They're reading the newspaper. Oh, the cat's annoyed with me. It's getting up. Goodbye, cat. There he goes. Okay. Banging on the drums and playing more instruments. Very lively music they're singing. And dancing. So it says that their dances tell a story, and that this one's about Jerry Rawlings. And here is some beautiful kente cloth, which I'm actually going to talk about in a video coming up in a few days about the history and meaning of kente cloth. And here's how it's made on the looms. Very beautiful. And this form of cloth is called a dinkra cloth. And it's stamped onto the cloth. And remember how I said at the beginning that way back in the day they didn't have their own form of writing. So the Adinkra symbols were their writing. Now my cat's eating, I'm sorry. Each symbol has a different meaning. So the Adinkra was their way of writing. I think on the next page it shows you how it's made. Let me see. Yeah. So here you can see stamping the cloth. Stamping the Adinkra symbols on the cloth. And here's the National Theatre in Accra. Kwame Anthony Appiah, currently teaching in Princeton University, it says. It's a famous novel about a Ghanaian student who studied the United States. Another famous author from Ghana, Ama Ata, I do believe. My cat's drinking more water. Of course, soccer is very popular in Ghana, like it is in many, many, many other countries in the world. Celebrating their team in the World Cup. And the track star, this is Vida Anim, the 2008 Summer Olympics. Day in the life, cutting some fruit, gathering some fruit on the farm, harvesting pineapples, harvesting some cocoa, getting water, like my cat's doing right now. The marketplace, very hustle and bustle. Big family, how the family dynamics work in their homes. Look at all the cute kids. And how they carry their babies, their back like this. Very sweet. And this is a bride. Very beautiful. The bead festival talks about how in this village these girls make these beads on their coming of age ceremony, and then they collect beads throughout their life. And here's Mancala, one of the best games. It says in Ghana they call it Oware. It's one of my favorite games. How cute. How beautiful. Oh, so I gotta talk about the funerals in Ghana. So this is a fantasy coffin in the city of Teshi, which is right next to Accra. It's right here in Teshi. Ghana is also where the dancing pallbearers meme comes from. They're from Ghana. So funerals are pretty different in Ghana than they are in the West. They're not like a mournful thing. They're almost like a party. Like, you know, funerals are celebrations of life, but in Ghana, they're definitely more like parties of life. So fantasy coffins are really trendy to create like these really like bizarre coffins that represent who you were when you were alive. See, like here's a picture from a funeral. Like, you know, you still wear your best clothes. I think there's another picture. Yeah, a funeral. It says, funerals are some of the largest and most expensive events in Ghana, much grander than weddings. It's like a bigger deal to go to a funeral than anything else. So, yeah. Here's Kwame Nkrumah when he went to see the Queen. He chose to wear the traditional kente cloth. Sorry, my cat's eating his wet food. He's being really obnoxious, but we're almost done. More women dressed in adinkra. You can see the little adinkra symbols in their fabric. And wearing modern clothes as well. And a celebration of the 50th anniversary of Ghanaian independence. You can see how joyful they are. Awesome. And that's the end of the book. So, I told you we were almost done. That's the end. Timeline of history here, but that's it. So, of course, my cat's being annoying, but oh well. But that's the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that this video was relaxing and educational. I hope you learned something cool about Ghana. So I have lots of Ghana videos coming up for you. Lots more about its culture and history. Lots of stories coming up for you. I'm excited. And lots, but 2 videos coming up about the Ghana Empire, which again wasn't actually in Ghana, but I'm going to seize this opportunity to talk about at least the ancient Ghana Empire